and welcome to this week's episode of Home to Hear. I'm so excited about this one because not only is it learning someone's journey from home to here, but it includes a very delicious culinary journey too. So let's welcome our guest today, Rowena. Rowena, hi, how are you?
Hi, Tiani. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you, Rowena. To introduce yourself, tell us who you are.
Yes, I'm Rowena Scherer. I'm the founder and CEO of Eat to Explore. I am originally from Malaysia,
That is
and I'm now
awesome.
in New York City.
Wow, that was going to be my next question. So you're from Malaysia and currently living in New York City. I love New York City. I was literally there over the weekend. If I had known, I'd have let you know and met you up for it. Then we could have done this in person, perhaps. But so you're joining us from New York, and we might see a cameo from your beautiful,
Cat.
beautiful cat, Lucky.
Lucky.
So let's get into a little bit more about you, Rowena. Tell us about your childhood and where you grew up.
So I actually was born in a small town in Malaysia called Muar. Sort of always my husband always laugh at me. It's a fishing village because that's what they by the river. Not a big town. Everyone kind of know each other. My mom and dad grew up there, so I'm the third generation Chinese. And then growing up, I just want to leave the town. I think somehow I feel it's too small for me from very, very young age. And I was lucky enough to earn a scholarship. So I left, and I was the first one in my family to go to college. I got a scholarship to go to New Zealand, and that was my first time on an airplane. And I've been back visiting my family, obviously, but never really lived in Malaysia for any extended period of time since then. So, yeah.
Wow. And what was that experience like, starting that journey and making that move to New Zealand? How old were you when you did that?
Yeah, I was 17, and it was scary, right? It was scary, but I knew from a very young age that I feel I have something bigger that I know I should be doing. And so I've always, like, even with the scholarship, no one in my family going to college. So nobody knew that that's the right thing to do. And I was just learning about it from people and kind of stumbled upon New Zealand. They were giving out scholarship and they were trying to get foreign students. So I applied and got in, and it was scary going to. And by the way, when I was growing up, English is a second language. So Malay is what we study. Everything is in Malay. So also that having to move to an English speaking world and everything is in English, that was daunting, right? Then you're studying everything in English. So I actually ended up spending a short period learning English in New Zealand before college started, the university. So yeah, scary but exciting. That was the
I can resonate with that feeling when I moved as well for school. I was a little bit old, probably like almost twice your age when I made that move, but still having that sense of, something scary, but something that you're excited to embark upon. So I don't know if you can remember what it was like when you were getting yourself together to make that journey. Do you remember which was the hardest goodbye?
it's so funny. I almost like forgot about it. It's like it's so long ago, and I was so excited to leave that I have very few memories of saying goodbye to my mom and dad. It's kind of sad.
How long were you in New Zealand for?
So I was there so a few like under a year to learn kind of English, and then college was 4 years, obviously. And I then after New Zealand, I went to Singapore, and now I can't really remember the year. I graduated in 1991, 1990 thereabout. Yeah, can't even remember anymore. But yeah, that's around that time. And I love New Zealand. When I first got there, I stayed with a homestay family who was an amazing cook. So I learned a lot of food growing
Mm-hmm.
up because my mom was a good cook and she made us cook. When I was in New Zealand staying with the homestay mom was amazing cook. And I still remember eating my avocado for the first time.
Oh
And I've
wow,
never
that
had
is so
avocado ever.
that is so
I
okay. So we need to
know.
like double tap into that.
I
Tell me
know.
come? Like, was it that it was just not something that was easily available in Malaysia, or
Never seen an avocado ever. And the first time I had avocado, so there's a fruit called durian in Malaysia. It's like this spiky fruit. It's very rich and intense in flavor, intense in smell. Like, you can bring them in airport. They'll forbid you from bringing them to hotels because it's like king of fruit. And my kids would never touch it, and neither would my husband. So I thought the memory of first time I bit into avocado, oh, my cameo, lucky, it reminds me of durian, which is that very rich and yeah, I think the richness was what
that is
reminded me
such
of
now
durian.
I need to find this fruit, and I know you can find almost anything in New York if you're
Yes,
determined. That is so interesting. Think a lot of times you take stuff that we have in our different countries,
yeah,
for granted, and there's so many,
yes,
more cultural and culinary experiences that you can have as you open yourself up. But maybe
yeah,
just kind of staying a little bit when you left Malaysia. When you
yes.
left, did you have the mindset? I know you were quite young, but did you have the mindset that I'm gonna come back, and or was your mindset that I am leaving? And because I know you said you felt your hometown was too small for you,
Right.
or was it like I'm out, see you people?
I know. I actually always ask myself, why did I take that leap and never my sisters? I have two other sisters, and my older sister actually lived like blocks from my mom. And I think it's somehow innate in me that I need to explore the world. It's like I never stop, and I still haven't stopped. Like that is kind of innate in me that the world is so big. I need to explore. Even New Zealand. When I was in New Zealand, I graduate. I cannot wait to leave, even though it's a beautiful country. Right? I feel like it's the middle of nowhere. I need to go somewhere, and maybe that's why I ended up in New York because it's like the best city, and there's nowhere else better. And here's where I live.
I agree. I like that you felt that, for you to do that study of yourself to say, I've always had this feeling that I want to be somewhere significant,
Yeah,
and taking those steps, making that leap to,
yeah,
invest in
yeah,
yourself and get yourself to the next stage. So tell me
yeah.
about Singapore. What was that like? How was Singapore different to New Zealand? And which part of New Zealand were
Singapore.
you in actually?
Wellington, which is the
Okay.
capital, of New Zealand. And I did some traveling. I was very poor, but did like easy trips. But I picked Singapore because it's very close to Malaysia, right? And it's more developed and there's more opportunity. And I have to say, I thank my mom all the time for first explore teaching me how to cook and exposing me to food, but also make very practical decision, right?
Hmm.
So growing up, I thought I want to be an architect because I love building, I love designing. And my mom sat me down and was like, you should be an accountant because architect doesn't pay and you need to be independent as a woman. Never
That's
ask
right.
your husband for money. So what is the best job is handling money. So be an accountant and then that will give you security, which is what I did. I ended up studying Bachelor of Finance in accounting, and then I did psychology. But I think that practical mindset that my mom gave me ended up allowing me to think, where can I go where I can build a career in like finance or accounting. I ended up working at JP Morgan and was in finance for a long time. So
So did you start out at JP Morgan in Singapore and then transferred to New York?
no, so I started out working at Deloitte and Touche because of accounting. And
Mm.
then I somehow maneuvered myself into the banking practice of auditing. And then within a year, I got a job at JP Morgan. And then they sent me to New York for training. And that's how my relationship started in New York.
So tell me about your first time in New York City. What was that feeling? What was that like? I mean, I'm not sure what type of media you had grown up watching in
Oh,
Malaysia.
yes. Yeah.
And so now you get to New York and it's the reality versus expectation. What was that like?
So, growing up in Africa, I think internationally, I'm always amazed how American music and movies and shows just take over the world, right? I grew up listening to American music, watching American shows. It's sort of like my friends even laugh at me. He's like, "How do you know this song?" I'm like, "I don't know. I grew up singing it." You know, it's like you're in the middle of nowhere, and yet you still know American sing songs and movies, and even my mom know Hawaii Five O, and like it's kind of amazing, which is why I love this country. So going back to your question, I love music, so I still remember recording. You know how you have a little cassette tape when I was
Uh
young.
huh.
So I will write out the lyrics. Like I would
Oh,
like forward, replay, like just writing out lyrics so I can sing the song. So even though I studied Malay, I mean English is still like it's like part of your life, right? So I learned English watching TV, listening to music. So yeah,
and I think I can relate to that. Like having, we used to call them when I was in elementary school, we used to have these books called autobiography books, which is a little book that you compile with all your favorite celebrities, all your favorite musicians, and then you write all your favorite songs, and you have to write
yep,
the lyrics to the songs in that book, in your auto book. So
yep.
I know that feeling. But what was your first day in New York? Landing in New
So
York City, here you are. What was that feeling to you? Can
yeah,
you
yeah,
still
yeah.
remember that?
Landing in JFK, I still remember coming in, but I was lucky enough coming in with JP Morgan, so they put me up in a nice, like a service apartment. But I still remember landing at JFK for the first time, and getting into a taxi. This was in the 90s, so it was like scary. But the good news is I got to know other people in the analyst program, right? So there are young people that we go explore, and there was a few Singaporean who are here because NYU has a lot of Singaporean students. So I managed to find friends,
Yeah.
and then I found my husband. So that
Okay.
fateful trip that was here for 6 months, I found my husband. We got married exactly a year later. We've been married 20 years.
Well, congratulations. And that's so important that when you arrived in New York, you found community, you found people that
Yes.
helped give you that sense of belonging, that helped you, explore the city while still feeling like connected to something that felt familiar for
Yes.
you.
I agree. I mean, that was one of your questions. I feel like, coming to a new country to be able to have access, it's so important to a people. You always kind of gravitate to people from your country, but sometimes it's hard to find, right? But
Yeah,
then, so if you have a chance to gravitate to international friends, who are here also, and they're as foreign as you, that's also nice to have. So,
that's good. And I want to kind of look at, the first time when you arrived, from what I'm gathering, and correct me if I'm not hearing it correctly, when you arrived in New Zealand, it was kind of DIY. You were met by a host family,
yes,
and
yes,
it was, very low key. I guess when you went to Singapore, you had a job at Deloitte and a couple more resources available to help you. And then when you moved to New York, you had full service department, everything kind of like catered to you. And is that accurate, kind of that making those moves like that?
yes, yes. So going to New Zealand, I have a homestay. I'm middle class, but I have scholarship paid for the school, but then I still have my expenses. So I used to work every weekend. I worked housekeeping. I worked at restaurants. I still remember working at a dim sum restaurant because I'm dying for dim sum, and that was like it's free. So I work every Sunday at a dim sum restaurant, and then on weekdays I work at a Malaysian restaurant so I can have Malaysian food. So I'm very adaptable. I'm kind of like figure it out, and so I never feel like I'm always rich in terms of experience. I
Yeah.
never feel depressed because I'm resourceful. I think,
Yes.
as a foreigner in a country, sometimes it can be depressing, right? Because you don't know anybody. But one thing I felt in my experience of trying different things and willing to experience different culture in a different country, it builds confidence over time.
Mm.
And I really think for me, moving from Malaysia to New Zealand, then to Singapore, then to New York, my confidence keep building as I go. And I never reluctant to ask. I'll ask a stranger for direction. I'll ask for a job. I'll ask for a promotion. Like I think that's important to open up your mind and said, it's about confidence. And if you have confidence and you show that you have confidence, most people will respect that.
Yes. That's true. I agree with that. And I want to actually like stay with that. I know coming from like South Africa, the mindset at times is, be humble, keep your head down, just do your work. And, if you do a good job, you will get recognized. Like you're not kind of encouraged to have that self promotion. So when I moved to the US, it took me a while to like find that rhythm of being able to basically introduce yourself in 30 seconds or less. And so that
Right.
was like a cultural shift. As you made all those moves, can you like talk to us about some cultural shifts that you've had to make in order for you to find success where you are now?
I think it's our education system because you and I was saying, and my husband growing up in Kenya, my husband grew up in Kenya, by the way. So we are all like British education. I think British education was more like stay focused and study and memorize and don't ask questions, don't debate. Like just, you can debate, but that's a debate. But other than that, just work hard, be quiet. And I see my children, the American way of teaching is absolutely different. They want you to speak up, right? Like the more voice you have, the more you're noticed, right?
Hmm.
And it's hard to get there naturally. And so I feel like my kids are natural now because that's how they've been taught at school. And I think it's coming to America, it's in your face. You have to, because otherwise, you're left behind.
Yeah, that's true. That
Yeah.
element. And is there anything else culturally? I know as you're raising children that you've spoken about, what are some of the things that you grew up with in terms of heritage or culture that you are embedding and you're passing on to your children?
So I'm big with traditions. My kids always laugh. Like I have my Chinese New Year, I like to host this, and then I have like my traditions, and I love practicing every year those traditions. And it's now kind of like my kids love it. And my daughter, she just wrote a paper. In fact, she's very into finding out where my family are coming from, why did they move from China to Malaysia, all that source of why do people leave, that cultural transformation. And yet, a lot of people who left their home country many, many, many years ago still maintain traditions. And I think that's very important.
Well,
So,
if she's looking for a summer internship, unpaid, she can come and work on the podcast. Because
I will let her
that is
know. I will let her know.
that is part of what at the heart of it, this is really it, trying to understand like
Yeah,
why do people move, what is the reason behind it, and then when you get to where you're going, how are you acclimatizing, how are you settling, and how are you still holding on to parts of you that you came with from your home country or from your home
right.
culture. So very happy
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that's why I left finance to study to explore. Speaking of which, because I really think people need to know about different culture, and even the culture itself has further story, right? That's like for many many years, people move around. The spice trade. Like Malaysia, we were occupied by the Portuguese, we were occupied by the Dutch, we were occupied by the British, right? So, and then we have Indian and Chinese and Malay, and then we have still have some people from Portuguese. So it's a melting pot. The world is a melting pot if you think about
It
it,
is. And
right?
I love that you've said pot. It's a perfect segue for us to talk about what you are, your amazing company that you've started. And congratulations for getting that going. Talk about that moment when you're like, I want to start Eat to Explore. Maybe first of all, tell us what Eat to Explore is. And then what was that spark for you?
Perfect. I always love talking about it. It's my passion. So the spark happened so quickly that it was actually kind of scary. It's like my North Star. Someone said, "You found your North Star." Like I was actually with my family. So to actually dial back with JP Morgan, I'm always eternally grateful for allowing me to come to New York, met my husband, and then wherever I go, they will always accommodate me because my husband was at Merrill Lynch and then he moved to Singapore, to Hong Kong, and then I asked for a relocation to Hong Kong. So we lived in Hong Kong for a while. And then we moved to, then while I was in Hong Kong, I went to work in Australia for a while, and then I was in Singapore, and then I helped them, was in the team that set up their South Korea office and India office, and I was in Geneva. So I have the the opportunity to travel everywhere and actually immerse in the culture.
Yeah.
And of course, everywhere I go, it's always about what's the food, what's the restaurant, what's the market, and all that. So, and the other thing is, because I love food and I love cooking. I actually did a French culinary degree while I was in New York before I had children, because I found, French is the hardest cuisine, and I really want to learn. But I never want to be a restaurant owner or chef, because I felt like that was not my calling, right? So when that trip, it was a trip to Thailand, and my kids were 9 and 12, spring break of 2016. We were doing a family cooking. And at that cooking class, my daughter and my son was kind of like playing with the onion. And then they're like, Mom, what do you want me to do with this onion? And not really focusing on the teaching, on the cooking class. And that was that moment where it just really happened. I'm like, I actually fail as a mom, as a parent, because I never let them fail. I was failing because I never let them fail. I never
Mm.
let them in my kitchen. I never let them use the knife. I never let them use the stove, right? I just like kitchen was my safe spot. I don't want to send them to eat. I don't want to get hurt. It's like that
Yeah.
mom mentality. Like I'd rather get everything done for them. And then because I'm a working mom, I'm like, I don't have time. So don't bother me. I'll just
Yes.
quick. And I said, I want them to be doing music class. I want them to do ballet class. I'm like doing everything but spending time with them. Like now that was like that moment where I'm like, you know, I failed because I instead of spending time with them and teaching them, they were like doing other things, right? Than spending time with me. And now they're like they're young adult. I felt that that moment was like a poignant moment in my life where I said, I have only a few more years with them and then they're gone. So make
Yeah.
the most of that few years. And food is such a great connector, right? Like teaching them to cook. You can talk about it. You can take them to supermarket. And so that was that moment where I said, you know what? It's never too late. I've done the career of finance. I still have so much energy and life in me. I'm almost 50. I think it was 46 at that point. I can't remember. But I'm like, that's like my midlife crisis. I call it my midlife crisis.
Well, it produced something good. I've heard of some midlife
It's
crises
like
that
midlife crisis, like
go
to
in.
exactly. It's like, what is the next stage I need to change now? So that was kind of like my midlife crisis moment. It's like, okay, like my kids needs to learn a skill, and I need to teach them. Like I have the skill that I need to teach them, and I see their friends, all their friends is like they eat pasta, they eat burger, they eat pizza, but they don't know that there's a world of cuisine and flavor and culture out there that they can learn. So that was kind of the day. That trip was like I came back from that trip. I went to my partners. I'm like, I'm taking sabbatical. I'm taking a sabbatical to try this, and if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, I'll come back to finance.
And then something that I picked up, if you don't mind me saying this, is that as you're talking about with your children, when you spoke about your relationship with your mom, a lot of it, you kept bringing up how she was a good cook and she taught you how to cook from a really young age. And then now, when you were raising your children, it seems like that was something that, because, working or whatever it might have been, you may not have had the space or the, kind of the opportunity to continue that culture. But now you're in a position to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I tested every recipes with my kids, and I have to say my daughter is a really good cook. My son, decent. But now we don't do it very often. But Thanksgiving is when I make sure everyone make a dish, and so once a year we still cook together.
So that's good. I mean, Jill, you are still maintaining that tradition that you had with your family when you were growing up, that, a really good culture around food and letting that be a way that you also connect.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
And
a
that's
great
what you,
connector. I mean, if
yes.
you think about it, for generation, no matter what race you are, what country you're from, sharing, breaking bread, making a meal together, it's been going on for generations, right? And I feel like the society needs to return to that experience of sharing.
We do. We definitely need to get back to experience of sharing and also learning from each other because ultimately,
Yeah.
that's really foundational to what you do as well, where people are open to learning. So what is the give me your 30-second elevator pitch? What is Eat to Explore?
Oh yes, I forgot to say. So Eat to Explore, it's a food and cultural experiential cooking kit, inspiring families and children to learn about different culture through the tasting of world cuisine.
I love
So
that. And which is the most popular cuisine? Which is the most popular, most requested
I think
cuisine?
our most popular countries are, Italy, obviously, Japan, France, Brazil, Mexico. Now we have South Korea. We just did Ukraine. So there's some that are newer that we add, so it's hard to know. But yeah, the popular European country, obviously. But we have Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, Lebanon, Israel. Yeah, 24 countries. So we have 24 countries to explore. And every box you learn, we have materials to learn the geography and history and music and art and language. We're starting to add playlists by the country, so we want you
That
to
is
make meal
great.
and listen to the music.
So
Like
it's
we have a
really like a complete
whole
sensory
immersive.
experience. Yeah,
Yes,
completely
it's a
immersive
whole
experience.
immersive experience. And we're gonna add movies that you can watch after dinner. And we're thinking of adding like, playing cards that you can kind of like quiz each other about the country. So yeah, I've got like lots of ideas. Keep adding.
I love that. I really, really like that. And I like that you used, your own heritage in terms of, just your own personal interest around food and then brought it into creating this really exciting business. And that's a really good thing about, living in a metropolitan city and very
Yes.
cosmopolitan city like New York, just the level of exposure that you get to even just resources like that and being able to keep studying further and studying quite
Yeah.
broadly. So I think that was a very good use of your time.
Yeah.
Where do you
Yeah.
see Eat to Explore, really growing to, and what ways do you want to, use that to connect with immigrant communities?
So we are very popular with schools now and homeschoolers. So all over US. So we distribute all over US. Every box is a country. There's only 3 recipes. There's a booklet to learn about the geography and history of music and art. We give you a flag pin to learn about the flag because I find flags always tells the history of the country. We give you a fun cooking tool relevant to the cooking. And then there's always a passport and a sticker for the country which you can collect. And in the Explorer booklet, there's like links to books and music, videos, and YouTube videos at a virtual museum. So there's a lot to learn. Yeah,
So when I moved to the US, like food was probably the most difficult thing to understand in this country. I was 31. I was very familiar with like spices that are from my home country. To this day, when I come from home, I'm surprised that that customs have never stopped me because my bags are like full of my own spices from home, medication from home. If I could even bring my own vegetables, I would because I just like, and I don't think it helped that I also moved when COVID, just at the beginning of 2020. So I didn't like really get time to kind of explore like farmers markets and all of that stuff because
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of that had
yeah,
shut
yeah.
down. So like my experience of the US is like Safeway, Whole Foods, and Trader Joe's. That's it.
Yeah. Come to New York. I'll take you to the spice store. They have the spices from the world, anywhere in the world. They're amazing. So this is how I connected. We're e-commerce, so we started with selling directly on our website, and then schools found us. We're big with homeschoolers from different locations, different states, and we're also big with like disabled kids or autistic children because they love receiving and they love cooking. And now we just started working with after school and public school in New York. Like we started working with Salvation Army. We always work with Forage Foundations, which are in every state, and they love it because, especially in New York, which is a very diverse city, has a lot of immigrants from everywhere.
Yeah.
So what they wanted to do, and they're excited every time I talk to all the schools, is they started to get the kids involved. So now other children can learn about the kids' culture, and then the kids can be proud and
Yes.
confident to then say, okay, now I can also tell you more, and then have them be proud of where they come from, and then talk to their parents, and then they can come share. So I'm super excited that we're starting to look at public schools, and once we use New York as the pilot program, I like to expose this to all over U.S. Public school where they can have funding. So
I really like that. I like that. And it makes a big difference. I've heard from some of my friends that grew up in the US who are immigrants that, when they would come to school with their lunch from their home country, that they'd get
yes,
made fun of. But now with your programs and just as people are learning more like how diverse food is actually really cool and, introducing people to different flavors. So you're
yeah.
doing a very, very incredible work. But it sounds like it's catered to people with kids. I don't have kids. Can
I
I get a
know,
box?
yes, we have. It's not kid food. And the funny thing is, I have so many people that reach out to say, it's like, can I get this? It's not kid. Like, I've no kids. Our food is not kid food, right? And it will be the next iteration where it's going to be less kid friendly because the food is absolutely not kids. It's adult family food, and maybe we make things less spicy, but we always said you can always add to make it
Yeah.
spicy, right? So it will happen at some point, but I want to be true to my mission because I really believe we need to focus on next generation because kids are so pure that
Hmm.
they are the future. So we need to start with them, and then I'll start with the kids, adults later.
Fine, I guess until well, I mean, I'll still get a box regardless, even if I
Oh
am
yeah, tell me which
I'm a child at
country. I'm
heart.
happy. I'm happy to send it to you.
I'm a child
Tell
at
me what
heart.
country.
But Rowena, thank you so much. I mean, I've learned a lot about you. I've learned a lot about, just the vision that you have. Like you spoke about, your resilience really does come through. I don't think starting a business in New York is not the easiest thing to do. And you've come out, you've, created an incredible career for yourself that aligns to your values, that represents all of you from the person that it sounds like you grew up as in Malaysia, always believing that there's more for you out there. And even now through this Eat to Explore, you're listen to the sites that you have. You're like, I can't wait for us to be in all public schools in the US. You're the type of person who really sets their sights far. And I'm so glad that we got to speak with you. But now, as we're winding down, let us get to our rapid fire questions. So,
Okay.
I call them kindling fire because sometimes the answers can be long and I don't mind. But let's go for it. So, first question: home or here?
Here.
And I know you've mentioned that a little bit more, but do you want to give like one sentence to explain why here?
I just love New York. I love the energy. I cannot see myself anywhere in the world. Maybe that's why I never leave. Like, I'm always searching.
Exactly.
I'm always searching. And I found it.
You found it. I don't know. Have you seen this movie called Past Lives?
No, it's in my to do. I want to watch that. Actually, maybe
You
this weekend.
should. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I won't spoil it for you. I'll just
Okay.
leave it there. When you watch it, can we text me and then we'll continue our conversation in private. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
What is your favorite food from Malaysia?
Rendang, which is a beef stew or coconut beef dry curry.
Coconut beef dry curry. Wow. Okay, you must.
It's
Well,
really
maybe
good.
at some point with all the food that I collect from, the podcast, we can actually
Yeah,
come up with
I'll send you a recipe. It's
with
not
our own
easy to make,
recipe
but
book.
I love it.
Okay, next question. What is your favorite snack to eat in the US?
Ooh, a snack. Um, uh, Cashew nuts.
Ooh, that's a good one. Very good, very healthy. Very healthy, very good. So I did ask you for a song from your home country. Can you tell me what the title of the song is
Uh,
and why you chose that song? Why do you feel that that song represents Malaysia? Why does it represent Malaysia for you?
because it's like I can sing it in my dream. It's called Rasa Sayang. Hey, Rasa Sayang, Sayang. It's so simple. So, yeah, that's the song.
And why do you think, why does it resonate with you when we say, when I asked for that, for a song that represents Malaysia?
It's like a children's song, right?
Okay.
And it's in Malay, and I bet you every Malaysian know that song.
Okay. I'll ask, I have some friends from Malaysia. I'll ask them if they know
Yeah,
the
ask
song.
them about Rasa Sayang.
What is your favorite memory from Malaysia, from your time growing up in Malaysia? Is there a specific moment in time that keeps coming back to you?
I think, cooking with my sisters and my mom in the kitchen. I always remember squatting down and pounding on the mallet, my chili and garlic and yeah. So just like just remember that vividly.
And I love how it's come full circle and how
Yeah,
this is what you where you still find your
was
joy
meant to
today.
do.
When you first moved to the what now that you've been here for some time, but I mean, you might not think of it as a very American thing, but maybe in your first few years, like what was something where you're like, this is a very American thing, like nowhere else in the world do they do this thing.
That's a tough one. Very American thing. Giving. I find American have a very giving personality, which is very odd because where I come from, everyone is like mine, mine. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you don't expect anyone to donate. I'm like I never heard of donations till I come to the U.S.
And I noted the same thing too about my experience here. I think when you grow up in an environment where resources are not abundant and there's like a
Right.
scarcity as well as a scarcity mentality, it really colors the way you see things. And when you come here, it's different in that sense. So that is
But
something I
it's
can
not
relate
just
to.
people with wealth or without, even people without wealth. It's astounding to me the giving mentality. It's amazing.
In your early days, what was something new that you learned about yourself here? What is something that you learned about yourself in New York and America that you don't think you'd have ever
Yeah,
discovered about yourself if you had stayed?
what I learned about myself is I call it thick skin. Like I'm never reluctant to ask. And I also don't see myself as any color. Like I see myself as a human being, which kind of free my mind from asking, right? So I feel like a lot of people like put a constraint on themselves, either because of race, because of their gender, because of what, and then they're not willing to put themselves out there and ask. I don't feel that. I'm like, if you can do it, I can do it. I may not do it as well, but I'm gonna give it a try. So
So So you the thing that you learned, I guess, is learning how to like you're saying put yourself out there. That's something that
yeah,
you that and that you need to be able to do that. And I guess to succeed in a place like New York, because there's so many things vying for people's attention that you really have to,
right.
get out there, get out of your own way. I like that.
Yeah, and it's not easy, but gonna have to. Yeah.
What is something that you're holding on to about yourself that you learned from home, that you learned from Malaysia? What is a quality that you're still holding on to that you learned from Malaysia?
I think it's hardworking, and continue having the ties of like the traditions, which I've spoken upon this earlier. I think it's important to have that connection of doing things that you used to do or food that you used to eat, and just continue introducing that to your family and passing on that experience.
I like that. And I know you mentioned the traditions. I know you said one thing is, you observe and celebrate the Lunar New Year. What are like some other traditions that you still hold on to?
Yeah, so Lunar New Year, I always like to have a really like a big like dinner. It's usually the Lunar New Year Eve dinner that's important. So we always like, have a dinner. And then getting my kids, they love getting their red packet. Until today, they still love their red packets. So getting them their red packets from me, from my mom, from my sister. So like that. And then mooncake, actually forgot. Moon Festival. It's a big thing. It's like it's spring festival.
Okay.
So you get like a moon cake. So every year, since we were young, and still today, my kids still like, please get moon cake. So there was moon cake that I get for Chinatown every year.
I like that. I must look out for that and must learn more
Yeah,
about
but
that. I
it's
must
only
research
only in
that.
September. It's only like 1 week, and you can get moon cake.
Wow. Okay. I'll put it on my calendar for next year. 2024.
I'll
Here I
send it to
come.
you. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you so you'll try it.
I will. Okay. Two more questions.
Okay.
What form of non financial support do you wish you had as an immigrant, as you moved from place to place, country to country, and from season to season in your own life? What type of non financial support do you wish you had in those different stages?
I think my life would have been so different if I had not had the college scholarship. Like, I think a lot of immigrants, and which is kind of why my husband and I have a scholarship supporting bringing African kids to Middlebury. Like, I really think education is the foundation. Like,
Mm,
having access to education is huge. It can change someone's life.
it does. So access to education. But I like we say, so non-financial. So I know
Oh,
scholarship.
sorry, not financial. I was thinking about financial. Non-financial would be, I think, a community. I think, like, no, easily access a community
Yeah.
of, like, even if you don't have to see each other, like a mentor. I really believe in mentorship. So having somebody that can you can reach out to, especially in a foreign country,
Yes.
it's very important.
I like that. I agree. I totally agree with that. And then last question, has home become here or has here become home? It's the same question.
Home becomes here, or here becomes home. Here becomes home.
So New York has become home for you.
Yes, yes. Kind of sad, but it's true. I can never. I just. I don't think it's in my calling or my life that I will live in Malaysia. Yeah.
That's fine. Maybe just lastly, I know I said last question, but you want to talk about where does that sadness come from?
No, it's sad because you would think that you will want to go home. Like, my mom is still there. Sometimes I'm sad I don't get to see her all the time. But it's just not my home. So it's sad, but yet it's reality, and I'm happy. So
I'm happy too. I'm happy that you have found a place that you can have as your home while you
yeah,
still maintain all those traditions that you have, that you found ways to pass that on to your children, and broader than that, that you are continuing that influence and impact to, like you said, you have your scholarship that you have. I'm sure our listeners would love to get details about that if they're listening and they want to find out about how to apply for that, as well as the what you're doing with Eat to Explore. Again, I will put links on the website and, kind of in our show notes for people who want to learn more about Eat to Explore and want to, explore some of the culinary destinations that you have for us. But in closing, Rowena, thank you so much for your time. This was such an exciting and interesting conversation. I learned a lot about you. I learned about your work. And as a fellow woman and an immigrant, just to see someone like you who came here on a job, but then you've transitioned to a whole new season in your life, that is very inspiring for me. So I appreciate that. And thank you so much for, sharing your journey with us.
thank you. And check out Eat to Explore. It's EAT number two EXPLORE Explore.
We
So
will make sure that people do that. Okay. Well, thank you so much,
thank you
Rowena.
so much.
It was really, really nice to chat with you. Guys, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and, get this podcast out there. Make sure that you rate it a 5 and sign up for that. And we can't wait to talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.